It's one of the last great journeys left in the world, a sea voyage to Antarctica. I was born and bred here in Hobart, and a tribe of Tasmanian Bowdens are on the docks to see me off.
Bye-bye, brother Nick. Have a good trip.
I know this trip is causing my father some pain. He's always wanted to go to Antarctica.
Bring me back a nice parcel of that. How many thousand-year-old?
At 88, he thinks he's too old, so I've promised to bring him back some glacier ice for his whiskey. I'll only be away 6 weeks, but just about everyone else on board is going to work in Antarctica. It'll be a year before they meet again. We're on the Aurora Australis, the first Australian-built ice-breaking ship. There are no tourists on this voyage. She's under charter to the Australian Antarctic Division. We're going south to resupply Australia's 4 Antarctic stations. I'm here to do a job too, to write the history of Australians in Antarctica. Australia claims a decidedly generous 42% of the whole continent, and over the next 6 weeks we'll be seeing quite a lot of it. Our voyage takes us to Casey Station, then west to Davis, and finally to Mawson. On this leg, we're heading for Macquarie Island. It's about halfway to Antarctica. It's strange how everyone else seems to have disappeared. I guess the old hands have seen it all before. But I'm feeling a tad intrepid at the moment, so I'm heading up to the bow to feel the spray on my face. It's still just calm enough to do it.
This is about as benign as the Southern Ocean ever gets. We've just been told that in about 12 hours there's a big blow coming, and I certainly won't be able to stand out here. Shit!
This is kid stuff so far, but the Southern Ocean has the biggest seas in the world. Every year since 1947, Australians have sailed south through these seas as members of ANARI, Australian National Antarctic Research Expeditions. Antarctic ships all roll abominably. It's because they've got rounded hulls so they don't get nipped in the ice.
Hi, it's Elizabeth. The doctor, I've just come to see how everyone's getting on. Can I open the door? Oh dear.
So that's where my fellow expeditioners are, kneeling before the great white porcelain altar.
The main danger for you, Obi, is that you get dehydrated, and I'd really recommend that...
For our 2 doctors, this may be their finest hour.
Actually, I'm taking tea, I think 5-6 cups in a day.
As soon as you're feeling well, I'll give you a hand onto your bed.
As for me, so far, so good.
Come in.
Hello. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Elizabeth Bulling is going to spend the next year as the doctor at Casey Station.
You are visiting the sick.
I am indeed.
Oh,
yeah.
this is wonderful.
How you going?
Take a seat.
Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, look, I'm not going too badly. I've done this sort of bit behind the
Oh,
ear
yeah,
that puts
beauty,
the slow
yeah.
chemical into the
Yeah.
bloodstream or whatever. And look, these are my acupuncture
yes,
points, you
yeah.
see. Now, I'm having a double whammy. I'm going for both.
Oh, I think it's important to use every method.
Trouble is, I'm so doped to the eyeballs with all this stuff. It might have been simpler just to be sick.
I'm a bit dry-mouthed and thirsty.
And I don't think I'm focusing as well. I'm sort of having to hold the book further out. By the end of our first day, it's calmed down a lot. We're averaging 13 knots, 24 kilometres an hour. At this speed, it'll take us 3 days to sail from Hobart to Macquarie Island. With most passengers horizontal, social life is close to zero tonight, so there's no excuse not to work. I'm particularly interested in the history of the early explorers. Some of them called into Macquarie on their way to Antarctica. In 1930, Sir Douglas Mawson was on his way south to claim the Australian Antarctic Territory. That's him on the left. The wildlife at Macquarie tended to have a hard time when visitors dropped in. This was a scientific expedition, but there was a less than reverential attitude to local fauna in those days. Despite all this, it was Mawson who pushed to have Macquarie Island declared a sanctuary by 1933. It's our third day out, and I'm delighted to see so many people in the vertical position. Macquarie is one of the most carefully guarded environments on Earth. Everyone's boots must be scrubbed spotless.
Who's next? Dennis? Cleaned your boots. Yep. Vacuumed out your pockets.
Botanists don't want anyone bringing foreign seeds onto the island.
Will you pass that one, Dada?
Bit of mark here.
Uh-oh.
I bet Mawson didn't have to do this.
Oh, there it is.
This is our first glimpse of the island. It's midday and it's still shrouded in mist.
That puts visibility at about 1.4 miles.
It feels like we're going to a lost world. But it's actually the beginning of an invasion. There's only one major resupply each summer, and we've bought all the stores for the coming year. This is the first time the resupply is being done by helicopter. We've got 2 choppers and 3 days to do it. Welcome to Tasmania. We're still here. Macquarie Island is officially part of Tasmania. It's all a nature reserve except for the Inari station. It's been here since 1948.
You can see from the corrosion on the outside that it's starting to break down.
Joan Russell has been the station leader for the past year.
It's true of all of these buildings.
She tells me this row of historic huts is about to be demolished.
Well,
It makes me wonder how much history will be left here in a few years' time.
Cup of tea?
Love a cup of tea.
The island is an amazing zoo, a breeding ground for seals, seabirds and penguins. It's so isolated that Macquarie has become an important ecological monitoring point for the whole world. Subtle changes in pollution levels can be measured here, in the atmosphere and in the wildlife as well. I suppose suppose of all God's creatures, molting bull elephant seals are the hardest in my view to love. They just lie there in pools of their own ordure, top to tail, sometimes even pooping in each other's faces. But they're everywhere. There are thousands of them. So what happens when you spend a year among elephant seals? Well, Joan Russell has, and confesses to having gone just a teeny-weeny little bit native.
I love elephant seals with a deep and abiding passion. They appear to me to be the best adapted of the marine mammals. I mean, they just do everything right. They also have a nature that suits my personal biorhythm. Early in the piece I wrote home and I said to my mother, sorry to tell you, I've put on a bit of weight and I've stopped showering every day. I think it's elephant seal pheromones.
I've been invited out on a field trip with a birdo, biologist Jenny Scott and Alan Wiltshire.
Some of them have terribly inaccessible nests for humans, but
We're heading up into the high country.
there's four species on Macquarie. Wandering albatross, grey-headed albatross, black-brows and light-mantled sooty albatross.
Jenny and Alan spend most of their time scouring the cliffs looking for nesting sites of the light-mantled sooty albatross. Jenny's job is to monitor the population of these wonderful creatures. I'm amazed we can get so close to them.
As long as you approach them very slowly and quietly and from below, it's usually okay. And when they're on eggs, especially when they've been on eggs for a little while, they've got a fair investment in keeping on that egg.
Now the tricky bit. To weigh the sooty's egg, Alan has to replace it with a wooden decoy.
It's a big egg.
How much is it?
Yeah, heavy one. About 305.
These magnificent birds bond for life, for up to 20 years. That's if they're not killed taking long-line fishing baits in the Pacific. Population research here will help assess how many are being lost in that tragic way. Up here above the birds is the Macquarie Plateau. Grasslands, lakes and bogs, 300 metres above sea level. Even this savage coastline couldn't stop the sealers. They first came here in the 1830s. They wiped out the fur seals, then they killed all the elephant seals for their blubber and oil. When there were no seals left, they turned on the penguins. They clubbed them in their thousands and rendered them down in boilers and vats. After the sanctuary was declared in 1933, the seals and penguins managed to build up their populations again. They're safe from sealers now, but not from science. These people aren't refugees from a Mad Max movie. They're Anari biologists working on the elephant seal program. The elephant seal population has fluctuated greatly due to the effects of sealing and more recently to changes in the ocean environment. This 2-year-old male has drawn the short straw in the interests of science. Seal number 6521 is about to be anaesthetised for further study. Their numbers are half what they were 40 years ago. The scientists want to know if this is a result of natural changes or caused by fishing in the Southern Ocean. The team leader is Dr. Mark Hindell.
By measuring how fat these guys are when they come ashore, it's one of the best ways we have of getting a quick, easy measure of variation in the food resources over various years.
There are further indignities in store for 6521. I'm assured this doesn't hurt. He hasn't had a feed since coming ashore to molt, but anything left in his stomach will be flushed out with warm seawater. There's not a great deal in the stomach.
No, there's not, Tim, but what there is very important. This is what the animals are eating when they're out at sea, and that's primarily what we're interested in. And this little part here is what's known as a squid beak. It's the mouth part of a squid, and it's the only part that doesn't get digested. And from this we can work out the species of squid that they've been eating, we can work out how big the animal was, and we can also work out a fair bit about where the animal's been.
Commercial fishing is just beginning in the seals' feeding grounds, so researchers want to know whether there's enough food in the Southern Ocean to sustain the seal population. Elephant seal programs have been running here since 1948. It does make you wonder why they keep coming back. Macquarie isn't the Antarctic, but the wet cold gets into your bones. At the end of a long day, it's time for some warmth and company in the station mess. The population more than doubles at resupply time. The beer is definitely an acquired taste. It's home brew, an Inari tradition. They're experts at darts here. My friend Matt the chef did his best to explain the Macquarie rules, but it seems only the locals can win. From first light, the choppers are at it again. They're shifting 120 tonnes of cargo. All the stores needed for the coming year. Some basic statistics. This cargo includes 9,000 eggs, 1,700 kilograms of potatoes, and 192 very large cans of baked beans. The pilots are managing a round trip every 2 minutes and 50 seconds. But it wasn't always so easy. Everything used to come ashore by sea. First, they used amphibious army ducks, which were trucks with a hull built round them. Landings were always hairy. There are hidden rocks and bull kelp on the beaches, and usually a big swell. Heavy cargo had to come in on pontoons. It was wet, cold and extremely dangerous.
I'm over here once a week.
It's time for something I can't put off any longer.
Climbing hills around here becomes a bit of a challenge after a while.
This is the steep pinch, is it?
Yeah, this is the steep bit. After the first knoll, it's only a short climb then.
Alan Rook is the station's radio operator, and he's going to show me a relic of Mawson's first visit here.
We'll get up under the knoll and have a breather. Get a good view of the station.
I wish you'd panned a bit.
Why?
I'm doing enough for both of us.
Unfortunately, this means an almost vertical climb. It seems a lot more than 100 metres to the top. I'm risking an imminent coronary following in the very footsteps of the great Sir Douglas himself. In 1911, Mawson chose this hill as the site for a radio mast. The first ever radio transmission from Antarctica was received here and then relayed to Hobart and the world. It was a great technical achievement for that time.
Then, you can't see it with the fog just yet, but more or less directly ahead is the mast, or the remains of it actually.
Not even ordeal by skewer, the vultures of the Antarctic, can hold us back now.
Where's its mate?
You sure this is all right?
It looks as though we got here just in time. But after 80 years in the weather, it's remarkable there's anything left at all.
The mast is still here, but only just. It's pretty well worn out, but still standing. It was erected in 1911 by Mawson on his way to Commonwealth Bay, and it was in 1913 that they relayed the messages reporting Ninnis and Mertz's death on that fateful dog sledding trip with Mawson. And then again in 1913, Mawson received news via here of Scott's death at his attempt at the South Pole.
As a historian, I find it really worrying to see how quickly history is being lost down here. My time on Macquarie was coming to an end all too quickly, but there's one place I've been told not to miss. Herd Point is prime real estate for 1.5 million royal penguins. My guide is biologist Mary Ann Lee. There's something crazy about royal penguins. They're eccentric and quite wonderful. They've got to Mary Ann too.
Even when the weather's dreadful and it's raining and it's snowing and you're covered in chick poo and you know, it can be quite difficult. It's always fantastic to just sit and watch the birds. They're always entertaining and can bring you out of whatever other emotions you're experiencing at the time.
I've only been on Macquarie 3 days, and I don't want to leave. But if it's hard for me, it must be excruciating for Joan Russell. After a year in this wonderful place, it's time for Joan to hang up her gumboots.
The pull of Macquarie Island is very, 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 very strong for me. I'd love to come back as an expeditioner as opposed to the station leader. It is a magic place. I think that there's something in the bogs that probably attaches suction caps to your heart as you walk the length.
We've been lucky with the weather. We're only just back on board and it's closing in. We're leaving Macquarie as we found it, lost in the mist. Our next port of call is Casey Station. The people there haven't seen anyone from the outside world since last summer. Soon we'll be pushing into the ice towards the real thing, Antarctica.